Hello, everybody out there in YouTube land, and welcome to DC Fans United. So, I know I haven't made a video in a little while. It's kind of been over a week, so I figured I really ought to get a video out to you guys. Now, I've gotten a lot of subscribers recently, even though I hadn't posted, so I really appreciate that. I want to say hello to all the new subscribers, and thank you to everybody who's been here for a while. We're really close to 2,000, so that's pretty exciting to me. So, part of the reason I hadn't made a video for a little while is I've been doing a little research on the upcoming Joker movie. Now, I'm really excited about this. I've kind of been a little on the fence with some of these more recent comic book movies, but this one I find to be really intriguing. I've talked about it a couple times before, but I'm really excited about it because of really the acting I've seen from Joaquin Phoenix in the trailer and a few other things about it. So kind of what I'm going to be talking about is just basically everything I know about the movie so far. Now, we've had one trailer. Definitely watch it if you haven't yet, but we're going to be getting a second trailer this month, so that's going to be on August 30th. So keep an eye out for the next Joker trailer then. Of course, the movie itself is going to be out on October 4th, so that's going to be probably worldwide release date, but sometimes other countries seem to get it before we do in the US, so you might get it a little sooner if you're overseas. So that's really interesting, and if you don't know, this movie is going to be R-rated for sure. That was confirmed, so that's really interesting too, because we don't get many live action R-rated comic book movies. We've definitely had a couple, and they actually have both done really well, and they were both from Marvel. So there was Deadpool, of course, and then Logan, which in some ways is a little more similar to this, just in that it was a more dramatic take, you know. This is definitely going to be a very drama-centered movie, and I don't mean that in, like, often say nowadays people have drama, like they fight and stuff. I mean dramatic in the classical sense. He's going to be acting in a very just emotional way, and that's really kind of what this movie seems to hinge on to me, is Arthur Fleck, the Joker's own basically personality, his emotions, and of course his insanity. And that was, you could tell from the trailer, but it was also confirmed that this movie's partially going to be about mental illness, which there's a lot of clues to in the trailer. And I'm okay with that. I think that could be really interesting. We do get a little too much of that in the comics in some ways from like Tom King. But see, the thing with that is he's making all the heroes have post-traumatic stress disorder and stuff. I don't need a depressed Superman. But the Joker, he's always been based in insanity. He's always been a crazy guy. I mean, we've had the more gangster takes. I mean, you know, the Joker from 1989, he was a little crazy, but he was more of a crime boss. He kind of knew what he was doing. But we've definitely had the insane Joker. That's kind of been the standard in a lot of ways. So this also, though, he's just insane. He's not like Harley Quinn insane. He's more of kind of depressed, you know, like society broke him essentially. So I find that to be really interesting. I'm kind of interested to see what all they do with it. We do know, a couple people pointed this out to me, but it's also been confirmed too that this movie is basically inspired by Martin Scorsese movies, particularly Taxi Driver. So you can kind of see that just in the period. This isn't set in the 70s, actually it's set in 1981. There's a little misinformation about that, but it's definitely inspired by Taxi Driver. One thing about that, though, that I like and that really appeals to me is they're filming it kind of with that older style in mind, so it's not going to have any CGI or any crazy stuff like that. It's all, you know, real. It's the actors and the sets is basically all they have to work with. And that also really kept the costs of the movie down. That was one thing I found to be interesting too, is this is the second cheapest comic book movie as far as dollars to be made in a very long time. It's almost the cheapest. It was actually produced, they made it for $55 million, which, yeah, that's a lot of money, but for a movie, especially a Hollywood comic book movie that's probably going to be a blockbuster, they're going to make a lot of money on this, is my prediction. And I've said for a while, they really just need to make movies with lower production costs. I mean, you're looking at something like Batman v Superman, $300 million to film it, and then a couple $100 million more in production costs. That's how when you make over $800 million and you're still not making much money and it's not considered successful, that's a problem. But if you're making a movie for $55 million, what if you take in $700 million? You know, that's a lot of profit. They found that out with, well, Shazam didn't quite work as well as they had hoped, but really found that out with Aquaman. It had a good production budget, but it was still more in the under 200 million range. This, personally too, I'm just kind of tired of all the CGI and like the bloat. Like Batman v Superman was just such a bloated, like honestly unnecessary movie. And this is just, it's going back to the roots. So also too, one thing that's been kind of controversial about this is the director Todd Phillips said this isn't based on the comics. And a lot of people kind of freaked out about that and were like, I'm not going to watch the movie, yada yada yada. I'm like, okay, none of these comic book movies, other than Watchmen, has been very heavily based on the comics. I mean, Batman v Superman, you can say it's based on the death of Superman, and you can say it's based on the Dark Knight Returns, but if you've ever read those, no, not really at all. It's just a Zack Snyder mishmash. So yeah, my thing is, this isn't a problem for me because it's not based on the comics. I mean, what would you want him to base it on? The Killing Joke? There aren't that many origins for the Joker anyway. I mean, they could do a live action Killing Joke movie if you wanted, but I find this to be more interesting, and we have an animated Killing Joke, so it's just like, I think this is cool. I also think he misspoke a little saying it's not based on the comics, because there's definitely things from the comics that are obviously influencing this. Even in the Killing Joke and other origin stories in the comics, we've had the Joker being a failed stand-up comedian. We saw that in the trailer, so he can't completely say this isn't based on the comics, unless he didn't know that was in the comics. I suppose that's possible. But he's also using characters from the comics, like Alfred Pennyworth is going to be in it. Of course, Thomas Wayne's going to be in it. He is essentially the antagonist to the Joker, so that's going to be really interesting to see. My prediction is Thomas Wayne is actually his dad. It's kind of an illegitimate thing because we only see the Joker's mother. And yeah, their relationship's going to be really interesting too. At best, it seems like the Joker's her caretaker, and that's kind of what I'm going with. I think that, but yeah, so I think, so yeah, it looks like it's going to be pretty good. We do know he's going to have a love interest. We saw that with Zazie Beetz. She was in Deadpool 2, and she's going to be playing a single mother who's kind of his love interest. I'm not sure how well that's going to go though. That could be, my prediction on that is towards the beginning of the movie, they're kind of, a love interest, and something happens tragically, like she'll die, or at the very least that won't work out. And that'll be part of what spurs him into, being a villain. Frances Conroy is also in this. She's going to be playing his mother, named Penny. Robert De Niro is actually in this, and he's going to be playing a talk show host. And like I said, we know Thomas Wayne is going to be in this. He's going to be played by Brett Cullen. Originally, they'd wanted Alec Baldwin to play the role, which I could kind of see, but I'm okay with them having someone else. I've seen Alec Baldwin in a lot of stuff, and he's the Shadow anyway, so he doesn't need to be Thomas Wayne. I actually don't mind the Shadow movie. I kind of like it, but I'm just such a fan of the Shadow, I can overlook its faults. But anyways, I think that, oh yeah, another thing about this is this isn't part of the DCEU. A lot of people have been like, well, how does this fit in? We've had Jared Leto's Joker, we've had all these other DCEU movies. This is a whole separate thing. It's hopefully for Warner Brothers launching, aside from the DCEU, they're going to have DC Black. So that's kind of a different and probably their way of trying to jettison some of the Zack Snyder stuff and just have a different line of DC comic book movies. So I kind of think that makes sense, but at the same time, it's, their combined universe is such a mess right now. A lot of the movies are good on their own, but when you try and connect the dots like you would in the MCU, it doesn't work as well. So we do know for sure that this is also basically a standalone movie. Unless it does really, really well, they might make a sequel, but I know Joaquin Phoenix has said he doesn't want to do a sequel already, so it was written and planned to be a standalone movie, but it very well could have sequels. You know how they do. Oh, another thing too about it being R-rated, you never know. Old Warner Brothers could tinker with it at the very last minute and cut some stuff for a wider release, but it's definitely been announced as R-rated, so I think they'll probably stick to that. I'm not sure what all that will be for. I presume violence and language, but I guess we will have to wait and see. There could be all kinds of things, really. So, really after August 30th here pretty soon, I will know a lot more about it because we'll have a whole nother trailer. and then I'll probably make a trailer review and talk more about the Joker. So that's all for now, I think. So let me know down below, guys. What do you think? Do you like what you see? Are you looking forward to this movie? So that's all for now. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't. Hit the bell for notifications. And as always, thank you for watching and being a part of DC Fans United.
End of line.